When USPSA created a new division, limited optics, Masterpiece Arms decided to put their gamer hat on and build a gun specifically for that division. And now we have this, the Masterpiece Arms DS9 LOC. If you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that I have another video with the DS9 that has 5,000 rounds. I want to be clear in saying that is my IDPA compliant model. This is a completely different model that I'm shooting specifically in USPSA limited optics, so they're going to be two separate reviews. And another clarifying comment here is that David from the Humble Marksman channel already did a review on this gun, and I actually agree with everything he said. So I'm going to more so focus on what the ownership, reliability, and what it's like to live with this gun. Now, before I move along here, I have a quick note for my YouTube manual reviewer. This gun, as it's configured, comes directly from Masterpiece Arms, which is the manufacturer in this configuration. I haven't done anything to this gun besides put an optic on it, and that is not against YouTube policies. Now, the acronym LOC stands for what it sounds like, which is Limited Optics Competition. So it was built with the emphasis in focusing on specifically being the most optimized gun for that division. Now, as this gun is configured, they are currently going for about $4,000, and that does not include an optic, which will cost you another $500 to $600 if you're looking to go the Trijicon route. And with that comes two 24-round MBX mags, which fit the 141mm requirement. If you want to specifically buy another MBX mag, that will run you another $130. If you have Atlas magazines that are long like that, or even the Pro Mag ones, I don't know if they make one that long, but they will run in this gun. Now, I want to say is if you have like the original 17-round or 20-round magazines, they will not fit, largely because of the enlarged mag well. So let's talk about what is different between this gun and my other DS9. Well, the biggest add cost to this is actually in the steel grip itself, whereas the other one is aluminum. Now, all in with a magazine, its competition weight is 57 ounces, whereas my other MPA was 43 ounces, just to give you an idea in the difference of weight. It's huge. Now, some other things that come with it too is an enlarged magwell. The MPA that I have for IDPA comes with a tactical size magwell. This has a nitro fin thumb rest on here, and they do come with shielded ambi safeties. And if you can see visually, there is one small detail too, is that this is a full dust cover on here, whereas the other MPA had a butler cut. And to tie that off, the other thing is they've done a little bit more internal work to get the trigger pull weight down from where it's at, and I'll show a video of that here because YouTube doesn't like it when we talk about certain trigger weights. So take a look at those and you'll see that there is a difference, and that translates a lot to the performance of this gun. When I first got these, I felt that they were different the second I started racking this gun, because the fit and finish is definitely a market improvement. And what I mean by that is on my other ones, when you'd rack them back, they felt glass smooth, where this one feels buttery smooth. And from a perceived value standpoint, that feels like a $6,000 to $7,000 gun versus the $3,000 to $4,000 gun that these guns actually cost. So the perceived value from my perspective has actually increased, and you can even feel that in the trigger, because the old ones had a touch of wiggle in them, where this is just rock solid, because at the trigger weight it's at, you definitely need no play in there, and this is just perfect. Now it's time to dive in what it's really like to live with this gun. So before I do, I want to ask that if you like this video, please hit that like button, as that really helps me a lot. And you're going to want to subscribe, because I continuously come out with content about these guns and other things as well. So you're going to want to tune in. So before I decided to start paying a little bit more money for guns, I always had this preconceived notion that there was a break-in period, especially on these tighter tolerance guns. And in the time that I owned my other DS9 and as well as this one, there was no break-in period. I literally got right to work with this gun. And this particular gun, the one that David had reviewed, he's shot this thing from right when it was brand new. I literally put 5 rounds in it, zeroed it, and gave it to him. And that's it. He did all his evaluations with this gun as is. And so there's no break-in period for these guns now. Now, one thing I do like to do, especially before I get serious with the competition side of these guns, is I like to see how long they run before I need to put oil and as well as clean them. Now, when I got this one, I did put a healthy heaping of grease in it, and I took it to about 2,000 rounds when this thing actually started to slow down a little bit, and at that point, I decided to clean it. And that's funny because on older 1911s, the motto really is oil it and it goes forever. Well, this one I really didn't have to do much to it, and I was surprised when I tore it apart that there just wasn't a ton of debris. And that has everything to do with the tolerance stacking on this thing being minimized, so there's just not a lot of debris escaping around other than catching ambient dirt. That gave me a lot of confidence in this gun, and if I can mention one thing to anyone out there, you should be absolutely 100% confident in the gun you're shooting. Now, as far as the reliability, this was a shining point. Now, in the other DS9 video, I really stated that I had no issues other than the ones I caused. Well, after that video, I started to try different types of ammo. Certain ammo would start to choke that gun up, specifically long-loaded 147 rounds. And there were a lot of frustrating times where I would get a jam mid-match with that gun. And so it was a little bit pickier with what ammo I'd put through it. Now this gun, I don't know if they did something different with the throating or the chambering of this gun, but it was not picky at all because I could put anything through this regardless of the bullet grain or weight. I even threw +P through it for fun. Even with an 8-pound recoil spring, it cycled everything. It's something to note because it's like MPAs took some feedback watching me probably choke the gun and probably others out there and figured out a way to not only improve the perceived value of the gun, but its actual performance and living with it. Now, the one malfunction I believe that I had is we had an unloaded start at a major match, threw the mag in there and racked it back. And this is kind of the downside of an 8-pound recoil spring, is that it didn't have enough momentum to push in a fully loaded magazine. So a simple bump on the back and it went into battery and I went to work. But that's the only malfunction I can ever think that I've had with this gun. And I shot this through winter months and summer months, and it's not particularly picky with weather. I will say that I like to put grease in it for the summer months, and the winter months I like to go with oil on it because I feel that when you put grease in the wintertime, although it'll still work, and I've seen some really nice guns get gummed up in that time, this gun will start to slow down in the cycling, and that's more of a preference thing than an operational thing. So that's the one tidbit I would give if you are looking at this gun. Now, getting into the shooting experience, because that is the best part about this gun. I mean, I would go as far to say is it's ridiculously soft because anyone that shoots this gun just laughs when they shoot it, and it doesn't matter which ammo you put through it. It feels soft to shoot. At 25 yards, this gun will punch through the same 1-inch hole. Is because you have such a great trigger with it. It's so heavy is that it's very, very forgiving. And it rewards hard shooting because you can drive into position with it, and as long as you're sort of looking at the target, you can start to fire off rounds. In fact, I ended up shooting my best major match to date with this gun when I grabbed about 94% of points with it. So I have very high remarks with this gun. One thing I do want to point out is how this gun does transition, because it's wonderful to shoot, but it feels like a lot of weight in the hands. Funny enough is my Shadow 2 is only about 3 ounces lighter than this fully loaded. So apples to apples, you would think, wait a minute, that probably shouldn't feel too different, especially at the weight that they both are at. Well, with the Shadow 2, you're essentially putting the brass grips on it to balance it back out for a already muzzle heavy gun. Whereas all the weight on this gun is in the hands. If you could see here, it is not going to move. When you're getting used to it, what it feels like is that you're moving a lot of weight, but it's actually getting into position gently, because that's the one thing I will say about my Shadow 2 is anytime I swung it hard, I had to be careful not to push it too hard because I could over transition pretty easily. And one other thing too is the reloads on this. I know reloads don't feel like a sexy thing to talk about, but on this gun, well, I'll let some of the footage do the talking. Now, there was one particular hiccup with not necessarily the gun, but with my rigging, and that has everything to do with the weight of this gun. And I'm still working through this issue as of this video, is that I'm using a double alpha flex, and I'm not sure why exactly, and I've played with the shimming, the positioning of it, but what it ends up doing is it ends up pushing the mechanism down to where it gets hung up. So there are times where I'll go to draw this gun and it just will get hung up. And unfortunately for me, I need to get that fixed because it does dial back my confidence just a touch, knowing that my gun could stick coming out. Now, one thing I want to point out, and be careful about this, guys, is as you do grab your gun from the holster, is don't be the guy that the second you touch your gun, the safety comes down, wait till your gun is pointed up, then you slap the safety down. Because one of my friends pointed out that he said, wow, I'm glad you're safe, because I know while that gun gets hung up in your holster, that safety hasn't been pushed down while you're trying to fight through it. So think about that, guys, and that is something I'm working through right now. Guns of this fit and this performance output usually cost in excess of $6 to $8 grand. Well, this is about $4 grand, as you see here, plus you're gonna wanna add an optic. And that's what I love about MPA, because they are so competitor oriented, they make the best gun possible without the frills or perhaps getting stuck in the emotion of a name. You still get the quality, you still get the performance, and they just go. And to top that off, this gun is very easy to maintain. Considering all the other high tolerance race type guns out there, I can't believe how easy the ownership of this gun is. And so if you're getting into race guns for the first time, this is definitely a first start. And it's hard for me because I try to review things as objectively as I can, but guys, I am just genuinely a happy Masterpiece Arms customer. And that has everything to do that they're hitting everything right, whether it's the customer service, the delivery times, and the build times, which are about half what similar quality type guns are outputting. It's really hard to ignore that the value that they bring to the market, and I think a lot of people are starting to agree with that. Now, with that said, guys, if you haven't seen my other DS9 video, I'll leave that right here for you. And I do have all the rigging set up for this, and I'll leave that video right here for you. Now, until then, get out to the range, go shooting, and we will see you at the range.